Coach of the Year section. And this is probably one of the most competitive Coach of the Years I can remember in a long time here,
Mm,
where it was so bad they had to give it to Brian Dayball, who, I don't know, was a wild card team and he couldn't even win his division. But that's just how low the bar is when you have Daniel Jones as your quarterback. You're like, wow, this guy is so good that he overcame the atrocity that is Daniel Jones playing quarterback in the National Football League and led his team to the playoffs. How great is that? But this year, we actually have guys who won their division. We actually have guys who had
mhm.
good quarterbacks on their team. And then we actually have guys who won 11 games in Kevin Stefanski, who's on this list, who went through not one, not two, not three, but four quarterbacks and was the first coach to get his team to the playoffs going through four starting quarterbacks. So Kevin Stefanski, definitely deserving. Kyle Shanahan, he's the one seed, has the best roster, and statistically, his team was pretty much top five in offense and defense. So can't really go wrong there. D'Amico Ryans, I mean, this team is 3 years ahead of schedule. I mean, you're expecting this year three. He had the cojones to go out there, get Will Anderson and CJ Stroud, and he won a playoff game. So I think D'Amico Ryan's definitely deserving there. And it's hard to argue against the first three. Then John Harbaugh, again, the one seed, went out there and got Todd Monken, had some self awareness that, hey, maybe we can unlock something else in Lamar. And then he went, got another offensive coordinator. Offense looked completely different this year, looked completely awesome this year. And then John Harbaugh's like, hey, I should be in this because we are the best team in the AFC until we run into the Chiefs. And then, of course, the sweetheart, America's favorite coach, Daniel Campbell. He probably won't win it because of those. It's not supposed to count, but those two fourth down conversions, it seems like the entire media went knives out for Dan Campbell immediately. But with what he did with Detroit, he gave the Lions their best year of all time. He fixed Jared Goff. He changed the entire culture of that organization. He got them to a conference championship when the over-under on their wins were 9.5. Everyone thought the Dallas Cowboys were the second best team and not the Detroit Lions, when
Mhm.
they clearly had better weapons, they clearly had better coaches around them, and they clearly had a better quarterback and a better coach.
Yeah, I think that of these five, the two that I would take out is the Ravens and the 49ers. In this case, Kyle Shanahan and John Harbaugh. Not because they didn't have a great season, but what did we expect from them going into this season? Because Kyle Shanahan had the best roster going into it. We knew that. And with the Ravens, we saw that team. We're like, okay, well, that defense looks amazing. And that offense has Lamar Jackson and all this other great talent. They should be competing for the AFC title game. And that's exactly what they did. So they met expectations. All these other guys exceeded expectations by a long shot. The Lions over under this year was 9, and they had what should have been 13 wins if you count that Cowboys debacle. And then obviously, winning the most games they had since the 60s, winning 2 playoff games for the first time since 1957, winning their first playoff game since the early 90s, obviously overcoming a lot of obstacles there.
Amen.
With the Texans and D'Amico Ryans talking about 4-13, 4-13, 4-13. And then what do? They go out, make the playoffs, and win a playoff game. If we're talking about CJ Stroud for Rookie of the Year, we got to say the same thing for D'Amico Ryans. And lastly, Kevin Stefanski, the handsome man that is Kevin Stefanski, overcoming 4 quarterbacks. And not just 4 quarterbacks. We're talking PJ Walker, DTR. As you say, DTR needs CPR. We have Deshaun Rapist. And then we have Joe Flacco. So he had to overcome quite a lot. And then their team literally falling apart, 30% of the roster being on the IR. I think Kevin Stefanski should win Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I think Kevin Stefanski has a case there, especially with everything he overcame. But in my opinion, I still have to give it to Dan Campbell. I think he should win Coach of the Year because Kevin Stefanski has won Coach of the Year. He did with the Browns what Dan Campbell has done, but Dan Campbell has taken his team further. Kevin Stefanski still had technically a better roster than the Houston Texans and lost in that playoff game. Dan Campbell got to the conference championship. His team was still under 9.5 wins there. And the fact that he gave Detroit their best season, I think Dan Campbell definitely deserves it. And especially with what he's done in year 1 to year 2 to year 3, now being this dominant team with putting Ben Johnson around him, putting Aaron Glenn around him, and Brad Holmes, the GM. I just think Dan Campbell definitely deserves this, especially with everything the Lions have gone through over the past few years. I think Campbell deserves to take it home, but I understand why you'd give it to Kevin Stefanski, because you look at him too, it's like 4 quarterbacks, and then he went out there, he got Schwartz, and he added them to the defensive staff there to take that defense to the next level. Didn't end up working out in the playoffs, but still had a great run, made history with the Cleveland Browns in a similarly cursed organization where we talk about same old Browns, and Kevin Stefanski has kind of erased that, where now they're going out there and winning it. People aren't saying, oh, it's the same old Browns now. They're like, oh, the Browns show up to town and it's going to be a tough physical football game, and you're actually not sure who's going to win. And Kevin Stefanski has still done that, what Dan Campbell has done for Detroit, for Cleveland. But I think if any of these guys gets it, I'm not really going to have a problem with it. If John Harbaugh and Kyle Shanahan got it, I'd kind of be like, okay, that's a safe pick, but I get it. But all of these guys are deserving.
Yeah.